Hi, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, you have episode 2 of Recent Reads. It is the first one that I am calling Recent Reads, even though it is actually the second one. It is the evening of Monday, January 2nd, my last day of quote-unquote freedom, aka vacation. School starts back up tomorrow. We have 8 school days before the end of the semester, and it would be quote-unquote days off, but I'm going to Houston for the marathon. Okay, so I didn't focus as much on reading today as I have other days of vacation because I'm getting ready to go back to school. As I mentioned, you know, quote-unquote last day of freedom. And I am transitioning back from listening to audiobooks almost all the time to listening to podcasts throughout the day, and then in the evening listening to the audiobooks. The only reason that I had switched for most of November and December was to get the Goodreads challenge met, which I almost did. There's just Stellar Loon, and that was just because I had so much on that series to catch up with. Hopefully, as I'm getting into it and reading more and more of these series, I won't have as much of a backlog for future years of that project. Goodreads project aside, I have been reading When Life Gives You Mangoes by Karen Getton. I think that's the author's name, and I'm really enjoying it. It's really intriguing, and I know that it's going to dig deeper into what's going on for the character, but she's really struggling with how her life is sort of unfolding after what happened that previous summer. And because she's the primary narrator and we're experiencing the story through her, we don't know what happened because she doesn't remember what happened. And there's little pieces coming in here and there that are so intriguing. I really like how her culture is front and center, and the audiobook narrator is doing an amazing job with the accents because there's a new girl to town. She's the granddaughter of a local resident whose mom slash daughter, the girl's mom, local resident's daughter, moved to New York, is now coming back. And so the daughter has the granddaughter, has a New York accent, and everyone else has I guess I would say Caribbean. I know there are differences between the different islands, but I don't know it well enough to pinpoint which one it is. But the narrator's doing a really good job at switching between those different accents, and it's not like she's narrating the whole thing with that Caribbean accent, even though it's being told from my first person perspective. And she does, I guess, her normal accent for most of that part, but when that character speaks, she has that accent. So I'm really enjoying that book. Last night I read and finished Wingbearer. That's the in-between time between the 2 episodes of the Recent Reads. I loved it. I thought this was a fantastic book. Terry Isakanyan's art is gorgeous. The colors pop off the page. The designs are brilliant. I loved the story. I don't know when the sequel is going to come out, but I want it. I also read and finished Fight and Flight, which was an audiobook that I read on Scribd. That was one of my NetGalley arcs, as well as Wingbearer. This audiobook had 2 different narrators, one for each of the main characters, and I found out later that the author, Jules Machias, I don't know how it's pronounced, its own voices, because she has this syndrome, Ehlers-Danlos, I think is what it is, of hypermobility, which causes all sorts of issues. And she also has generalized anxiety, which is what one of the other characters had. But the representation, the very real representation of what both girls were going throughout this book, fantastic. So well done, so believable, so realistic. And it's both a story of them facing the challenges that come into the story before the narrative, because the one character who has the generalized anxiety or the panic attacks, she lost her aunt because of heart complications after COVID, And because of that, her uncle moved their family somewhere else, and she lost her best friend, who was her cousin. And she has this intense fear of death. And so that's what brings on the panic attacks. The other character, so that character, Sarah, the other character, Avery, was newly diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, the hypermobility. And before the story started, was riding her dirt bike. She's very active, and she like crashed or something, but because of her hypermobility, she injured her shoulder in such a way that she had to have surgery. All of this happens before the story starts, and so she's dealing with that. And then the incident that serves as not the main focus, but pushes a lot of the stuff along, is there was a active shooter drill at their school that was intensely realistic, and so it inflicted trauma. And this is a very real thing that goes on in schools. And so that was a motivating factor in the story, and it just was really well told. And I think it's a shame that my library doesn't have any copies of it whatsoever, and I was not able to find it just about anywhere except for Scribd. So I think more people should have that. So that's a little bit of the reading update. That brings us up to date on what I am reading. And physically, I think I'm going to pick up Out of Order, but I might actually just pick up Legacy instead, because I have the ebook of that. That's book 8 in the Keeper of the Lost Cities series. You'll see in my haul, which I think is coming up right after this video, that I did go ahead and purchase Stellar Loon because it's hardback and Barnes & Noble had their hardback sale, but I'll talk more about that in that video. So I might go ahead and read that. I have the audiobook, but it expires in 5 days, which is why I'm thinking that I'll go ahead and pick that up. Speaking of Barnes & Noble though, when they had their hardback sale, I got the email and I purchased some books online, and then later in the day I went to the store to purchase more. I don't know how I did this. I don't know how I spaced out and forgot that I purchased Foul Lady Fortune online, because I saw it at the store and went, oh, I want that book, and bought it again. I bought the same book twice in one day. I mean, who does that? I didn't take my receipt for the physical books, so I had to wait for the online order to arrive and take that receipt, which is what I did, and I took it back today, and I'm very pleased to say that I managed to just take it back. I didn't buy any other books, even though I was really tempted, because I have this massive shelf over here that I want to fill up. Now, I've got a whole bunch of other stuff that I need to get done before starting back to work tomorrow, so this is where I'll leave it. Okay, so Tuesday afternoon, first day back at work. Life of a teacher. You know. I could have done this update this morning, but I actually was productive and was crossing things off my to-do list, getting that done. Didn't have enough time to do an update because I haven't read since I got home. I had to run some errands, which involved going over to the library, which I do my old library branch, which was super close to where I used to live, because the one that's supposedly closer isn't really, and I don't know, I just have habits. But it's not exactly on the way home from work, so I had to drive over there, and I picked up some, I almost said pre-orders, some books on hold. And then I also was looking for other books that they had there in their collection, because I'm going to be filming probably this weekend my ongoing series video, the series that I started before BookTube, and I wanted to get copies of those books and not buy them all. And so I was doing that, and then I had to stop at the grocery store real quick because I needed just like 2 things. Why did I even start on that? Oh, I couldn't remember why I was updating you on this. I was updating you to tell you that I haven't read anything yet. But yesterday, I finished a really powerful book and started another really powerful book. I'm probably only about half an hour away from finishing that one, but I'm trying to be good about getting enough sleep as well. So the book that I finished is When Life Gives You Mangoes. And I knew, based on the reviews that had me put it on my list, that it was hard hitting. They didn't give anything away, thank you. It's so powerful. All you know is that the main character is dealing with the trauma of her lost memories from the summer before when a storm hit whatever tropical island that she lived on. And the way that it unfolds is so powerful. There's a little bit of unreliable narrator, but the way that the author did it made so much sense. And the twist, I did not see coming. So something starts to get revealed, and then I'm trying to think through as to what it means, and then what it meant, I didn't guess at all. It's so powerful. It deals a lot with internal issues and like people taking on blame for things, and how do we act, and how do we ascribe, how do we figure things out. So good. The book I started, Ibeliz Explains It All. And this book, I am so glad that I already have a physical copy, because this is the book that I had gotten an e-arc on NetGalley for, and then I saw that it was on the list of books that Barnes & Noble had decided not to give hardcover space for. And I'm like, screw you, Barnes & Noble. I'm going to buy this book, and it's amazing, and you're stupid for not putting it on your shelves. So this book is told in verse, but it's free verse, so you can't really hear it. So it's verse, as you see here on the text. But I'm listening to it on audiobook. And you can't necessarily tell that in the audiobook, which I don't mind at all. So it's reading very quickly. But in this, Ibeliz is dealing with some sort of trauma, and you know that she's dealing with it, but it's not really revealed. She's got this journal where she's writing poems. She loves these different poets. Like, one of her favorite poets is Elizabeth Acevedo. That's a win. And she's writing things down, and she's referring to things that she clearly already knows, but we as the reader don't know. And so some of the things are confusing at first because of what gets revealed, but she's dealing with PTSD and this whole thing that's going on with her parents, her dad specifically, I won't say anymore, and her grandmother has moved from Puerto Rico to live with them because she had dementia. And so she's dealing with all of that. This PTSD causes her to act out. Her grades are suffering, but she's trying to process and come to grips with all of these different things and learn how to live in the world with what she calls her broken brain. And it is so powerfully written. I am doing such an abysmal job at describing how amazing this book is. And I was thinking last night when I was going to bed, I have had 3 massive hits in a row. This Ibeliz Explains It All being the best of them. I had a 4-star with Fight and Flight, and 2 4.5 stars with Wingbearer and When Life Gives You Mangoes, and now I'm pretty sure I'm gonna rate this 5 stars. I mean, I know that all of 2023's reading is not gonna be like this, but if it was, I wouldn't argue with it. Okay, so I had to come on real quick because I got all my packages for today, and there's a lot. So much that they left one of the boxes. 2 of the packages weren't book related. One was my Sakura Co. Japanese snack box, and another was part of a Christmas present. I'm going to open them now. Okay, so it is now Thursday evening, January 5th. Figured I'd start throwing the calendar in there. I am getting ready to wrap some Christmas presents. Yes, I know. By the time you see this, it will be the middle of January. But for various schedule reasons, my family's not celebrating until tomorrow as of filming, but it'll be 4 or 5 days ago when you're seeing this. But I still need to wrap some presents, and that does give me time to procrastinate on that. So maybe it's not a good thing that we celebrate later. Otherwise, I'd have all the presents wrapped and stuff. So I wanted to update now because the 2 books that I'm reading now are not 1 or 1.5, 2 day reads. They're longer books, they're longer reads. The book that I am reading physically, I'm reading on my Kindle, and that is Legacy, which is book 8 in the Keeper of the Lost Cities series. I'm enjoying it, but I don't think I've gotten far enough into it to figure anything out. I will just say I am Team Foster Keefe, not Team Fitzfee. If you know, you know. And then the book that I'm listening to on audio, I had started what probably would have been a quicker read, and that is the J.C. Cervantes book, the title of which I am forgetting at the moment. I have read one other J.C. Cervantes book before, and that is The Storm Runner. And I thought that I could go into reading this book, which is the start of another series, the Shadow Brujas novels, and people said that you could. However, as I started it, the characters keep referring to other events that happened in books 2 and 3 of that series. So it was a 3-star read for me when I first read it, but I wonder if it just wasn't the right time, because what I'm listening to, what I'm hearing in this story, I'm enjoying. So I did put books 2 and 3 on hold, so I am going to read those as well, adding that to my TBR already, because I realized if I want to meet my overly ambitious number goal for the year, I need to read more than 18 books in a month. Am I crazy? Yeah. The book that I switched to is Vengeful. That is the next book that I had available. I'm not liking it as much as Vicious. And I think part of that is because the back and forth in the timeline is not between Victor and Eli. You have a different sort of back and forth that's happening. Another character is getting introduced. She, in her plot line, it's telling how she became an EO. Have yet to see how those plot lines are going to overlap. There's actually been a couple different characters that have been introduced, and I like one of them. We haven't seen her that much yet, and I'm intrigued on the things that are happening to Victor and Sydney's role in all of this. But at the same time, I'm not getting the point, and the plot is losing me a little bit in this back and forth timeline, where Vicious didn't do that. And part of it was I was tired last night while I was cross-stitching, and so I think I would zone out for maybe a minute, and then when I would zone back in, wouldn't understand how we got to where we were. It was weird. So I understand basically what's happened. I'm not going to rewind or anything like that. I'm hoping, I don't know how far I am in it. I'm probably about 15, 20% in. Obviously, I'm going to finish it. It's written really intriguingly. None of these characters are good characters. Somehow I can root for them more than in the Atlas 6, which had unlikable characters as well. Probably because they're better written in this. Apparently my printer has decided to sing randomly. I haven't sent anything to my printer because I'm sitting over here. Anyway, I'm going to read that, and I will probably finish both of those early on Saturday, because I don't think I'll finish Vengeful tonight. No, I know I won't. And tomorrow night, I won't have as much time for reading because that's when we're celebrating Christmas. So I probably won't update tomorrow either. I'll check back in on Saturday. Okay, so welcome to Saturday afternoon. So as I thought, didn't have much time for reading yesterday. I read about 45 pages of Legacy. Still really enjoying that one. And I didn't actually read any more of Vengeful, but today I did that. Funny story though, I could not figure out why my Hoopla app kept pausing. There was no pattern that I could detect. It would play for a while and then it would just randomly pause. Once my mom got over, before we went on a run, we figured it out. Because I started describing it to her, and then she said something about the app pausing on the audiobook as she was driving in, and then I realized we're both using the same app and the same login. And that's why it was pausing, because I would start, it would pause for her, she would start, and back and forth. Anyway, I probably will finish that today because I might spend some time puzzling and listening to it, but I might also spend some time reading after I take my shower. I should have taken my shower and gotten ready after my run a long time ago, but oh well. The reason that I'm over here is because I filmed my book haul. That's going to go up, I can't remember whether it's before or after this video, but I filmed it last night, and then I had to film a little update today because some of the books that I wasn't expecting to come until a couple weeks, they came today when I was gonna film it anyway. Oh well, but I, last night, did some rearranging on this TBR shelves, and I wanted to go over that. So this portion right here hasn't really changed. These shelves haven't changed either. What has changed is these shelves over here. So the different projects I have. This shelf is dedicated to my series book that I want to start this year. This shelf is dedicated to my Buzzwordathon TBR, and this is the pre-order that came in today, and so now I have this completed, I believe. No, there's one other pre-order that I'm waiting on. And then this shelf, which I did have it extend all the way back here, this shelf is my 23 in 23. I believe I'm still waiting on some books for that. I'm waiting on Schoolhouse Burning, and I have a couple not there right now. I think Schoolhouse Burning is the only book of all the ones that I ordered that I don't have. And then I moved down, and these two rows are my different series. I'm working on collecting various series, and I don't really have an order to them. The ones that I had the most of the series, I kept them together, and I started with those. This is the newest Graceling Realm book, and I have that there, which I love. I really do like that it already matches one of the books. And then down here we get some series that I haven't started, like The Flame in the Mist, and then I need to get the other two in this one. I should put that Graceling Realm up here, but it goes all the way back here to a couple where I have just random ones of the series down here, but I'm keeping all of the series together. And then I hadn't used this bottom shelf before, but these are all the other books that I have, and this includes ones that are not part of series, or at least series that I have started, because there's Beartown, and Beartown is part of a series. But I have all my Frederick Bachman together. I have my extra Tolkien ones, and then I have some of the ones that I already had, and then some of the new ones that I got down here. So that's the update. The plan is to try to finish Legacy and Vengeful today, and then get back to seeing how many arcs I can get finished. Okay, so it is Sunday evening, and I have read a whole lot more today than I normally do on Sundays, and I probably could have even gotten more read or spent less time reading if I hadn't gotten so sleepy as I read, but it is what it is. So wrap up both of what I read this whole week and what I read today. So I'll start with what I read today. This morning I started Suro Boateng's Guide to Vampire Hunting. I was going to read book 2 in the Stormrunner series, the Firekeeper, but I almost said Chromebook, my Kindle had charged only to 55% the night before, so that's why I picked up the physical copy, and I'm really intrigued by this. I knew that Roseanne Brown, with a different story, had a chance of becoming an author that I enjoyed, because I just didn't like the story. It wasn't that I didn't like the writing of the, I think, Wraiths and Ruin book. This is Ghanaian mythology, and the main character is an immigrant. So she was born in Ghana, and her family has come over, but her family are, you could say, vampire hunters. I forget what the term is. And they have to go off and save something, but they leave her with a family member who's not magical at all. But it turns out there's something going on there that she has to solve. I'm really intrigued by this, but I couldn't stay awake while I was reading it. I did get about halfway through, and I just realized that, oh, never mind. I was gonna say I just realized that I didn't mark my place, but I did. I just couldn't see the bookmark. So I'm probably gonna work on finishing this tomorrow, perhaps, because I'm so close to getting to the end of that. And then I have my Lords of Night book as my stand-in, because the other book that I read physically that I just finished and it took longer was Firekeeper. And I don't know what it was that kept me from enjoying Stormrunner more than a 3 stars, because I really enjoyed Firekeeper. I thought it was really intriguing the play on the different mythologies and bringing all that in. And I realized sometimes that a lot of people are more eloquent in how they discuss books. And if I don't prep, which I don't usually, before I'm talking about books, I'm really vague in what I'm talking about. But one thing that I remember, J.C. Cervantes, J stands for Jennifer. So I'm like, okay, I think I like you. Got a good name there. Just kidding. So one of the things in the Stormrunner series is that the Godborns, the half godly, the demigod children are not supposed to exist. There was some pact that was supposed to keep them from existing. And the main character, all of a sudden I can't remember his name, and I just read a whole book. But anyway, he realizes that there's more than just him, and it wasn't just his father that broke the pact, and yet they imprisoned his father, and they're being hypocritical about it. And this girl comes to his island where he's hiding, and when I was reading that part, I'm like, oh, it's Ren. It's the girl in this book. And I was like, okay, now I get it. I still want to read the third one so I can get a few of those other things, but I'm really glad that I went back and read those other two. Well, I'm going to read the finale of the trilogy before I read this, but I'm really glad that I went back and did that. So those are the two that I read physically. I haven't read anything audiobook wise, but I was able to download My Imaginary Mary on Scribd. I really don't like that they say that they're unlimited, but they're not really. Be that as it may, I'm going to read that next. Audiobook wise, what I finished yesterday was Vengeful, and while there were some things that helped the narrative come together in this book, I think it would have been better to leave it with Vicious, to leave it as a standalone, because what drove Vicious, the plot of Vicious, and had everything come together was so well, was the dynamic between Eli and Victor. And you didn't have that. You had it a little bit, but the storyline started to get muddled when you're bringing in all these other people, the one that I mentioned before, Marcella, and there was a reveal right at the end about June that I'm not 100% sure about because I haven't picked up on all the clues, but I think the fact that things got so frayed and so away from the original dynamic between the two of them that the whole lead up to the present day, that all of these flashbacks, because they say 5 years ago, 2 weeks ago, etc. The whole lead up to that event just felt almost anticlimactic because it was really hard to get invested between the different splits because there wasn't really two different sides to things. It was all muddled. But it was a decent book. So on the final group support book readathon, first readathon of the year, I did finish a series. I made an advancement in another one, and I started another series. Not exactly what you're supposed to do. So this week I read one book physically. No, during the week I read one book physically, and that was Legacy by Shannon Messenger, book 8. The Keeper of the Lost series, then the Keeper of the Lost Cities series. I knew I was missing a word there. And then yesterday and today I read Thurwa Boateng's Guide to Vampire Hunting, The Firekeeper, and audio-wise this week I read Vengeful. So, not too shabby of an opening week. I'll definitely take that. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.